Welcome back to Season 5 of Legally Uncensored. I'm your host, Demetria Graves, a licensed family law attorney based in California. Our podcast is dedicated to providing essential tools and knowledge for navigating the complexities of family law. We engage in uncensored conversations to shed light on challenging subjects, empowering our listeners with insights for healthier future relationships and proactive divorce strategies. Every season, we strive to offer a deeper approach to divorce, recognizing that legal matters are just one aspect of the journey. This season, we are making sure you understand the basics in the complex world of divorce. Our podcast is your guide to a new beginning and new future. So, thanks for tuning in, and make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and follow us on all socials. And also, more information is available to you at www.legallyuncensored.com. So today we have a very special guest, LaQuita Fergerson, also known as Coach Q Simone, an inspirational life and divorce recovery expert, public speaker, and advocate for holistic wellness and healthy relationships. Through creativity, soul work, and a three-brain approach, LaQuita provides a safe zone to manage emotions and embrace resilience, gaining clarity, confidence, and courage. As the founder and CEO of an On Q Coaching and Consulting, LLC, she curates encouraging one-on-one and group coaching, workshops, inspirational talks, strategy consulting, and more. LaQuita specializes in helping individuals thrive after life-changing events, and we all know divorce is a big life-changing event. So, I am so happy to have LaQuita Fergerson. Welcome to Legally Uncensored.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to speak with you. This is obviously one of my favorite topics to discuss.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So again, it's LaQuita Fergerson, and I'm known as Coach Q Simone. The Q basically is just the middle letter of my name because my name gets butchered a lot. So it's, spelled LAQ. People like to say LaQuita. So I just said, hey, forget it. Just call me Q.
Mm-hmm.
And Simone is my middle name. And so what I do is I specialize primarily with women, but also I have men as well.
Mm-hmm.
And my purpose for them is to help them gain clarity, whether they are thinking about divorce in the process or recovery, starting over after divorce, and primarily working with individuals that are in a faith based divorce or have some measure of a chronic illness, because those are issues that are exacerbated through divorce. And so those are the primary ways that I help them to reinforce and gain clarity on their identity.
That is awesome because here we talk a lot about separating the emotions of divorce and the business of divorce. And I primarily handle the business of divorce. And I've always encouraged potential clients to seek assistance with the emotional side of things. So, why would someone seek out a divorce coach versus a therapist or, a preacher? What? Why a divorce coach?
I really appreciate that you added a preacher into there because we all have different roles and different specialties.
Right.
So obviously with the therapist, I think that's the go-to. People, may want to go to a therapist just because that's more known in our society.
Right.
The difference between therapy and coaching is the focus. When you're going through a divorce, you're going to have a lot of emotions that come up. It may even resurface some old pain and grief. And so that's the role of the therapist, to help you resolve the past. The role of a coach, though, is to help you gain clarity on your present situation and to create a plan for moving forward. How are you going to show up in your present day so that you are working towards who you want to become in the future? So that's the primary role. There is an overlap. Quite often, I have individuals that working with myself as a coach as well as having a therapist. And I think that we both individually play a role in the process. And as you mentioned with the preacher, obviously they're going to come with the spiritual approach, and they have a very active role as well. I would just say that, especially when you're going through a faith-based divorce, there's shame and guilt that comes with that, your relationship with God. And so you may need a preacher as well, but the coach is really going to help you to apply your belief system into reshaping your values moving forward.
So, at what stage does someone typically come to you?
It's pretty average that I get someone that's thinking about divorce. And I would say that that's probably when you should reach out, not when you're already in the process. Either way is fine, but I would definitely say the moment you even start to think about divorce, because contrary to the title of a divorce coach, I don't advocate for divorce. And so oftentimes, when I have individuals, it may be one spouse or the other, or they may both come. Sometimes we're able to help them to realize areas where they can work individually and collectively on their marriage. And so that's another way to think of a divorce coach as well, someone to possibly help you to avoid the process.
So, kind of what does that look like? Someone calls you and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about a divorce." So, what walk us through kind of what you do for a potential client?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first question or the first part of the conversation is going to be, is this your first marriage? Is this your second marriage? Is this your third marriage? Because our mindset and our expectations of what marriage will look like is going to shift depending on, is this your first, second, or third marriage? I say, and I have this conversation even with my friends who have been divorced, that unfortunately, once you've been through a divorce once, it's very easy to do it again. And so your patience may have run thin, and you may just be looking at behaviors as red flags that are really not necessarily red flags, but just opportunities for you to work through emotions. So that's kind of setting the groundwork for where are you in your relationship with this individual. How long did you date before you were married? What was your expectations going into the marriage that is now making you feel like this is not going to work? And then we also incorporate the love cycles, if you're familiar with them, that sometimes depending on where you are in your relationship, you get past that honeymoon phase and you're in the phase of merging. And that's when all the quirks and the annoyances come through. And you're like, I think I made a huge mistake. And so sometimes it's just learning to navigate those love cycles. And if it's your decision that you still want to move forward with a divorce, then we go forward with who you need on your divorce team. Obviously, the people automatically know about an attorney. They're going to need an attorney, but they may also need a financial advisor. They may need a mortgage rep. They may need a therapist, a coach. And so, based on the conversation that we have, then there are recommendations that are entailed.
So, you basically hold their hand through this process, and you're kind of their trusted advisor through this process. So, it's bigger than just I need someone to help me with my emotions. You're kind of helping them reorganize their life past divorce. And I think that is
Absolutely.
so important because I say it all the time. I can only handle the business, but I can't be your trusted friend. I can't, sit on the phone and talk to you and kind of walk you through some of the things outside of the scope of what I'm doing. I could, but
Mhm.
it's probably going to cost you more than you want to pay for those services. So, what if someone is just so emotional? Will you work with a therapist? Kind of what does that look like?
Yes. And so I actually have quite a few therapists that will reach out to me because they realize that the person is stuck. It's not that they're stuck in the past, they're afraid to move forward. And so, in working with the therapist, what we do is kind of tailor a strategy for that individual with, like, okay, what are some tasks? Maybe there are, and I don't, maybe not tasks, but there are some hobbies, activities that they can do to kind of get their feet wet into overcoming fear in general.
Mm.
Because obviously you're afraid because you don't know what the future entails. But once you face any measure of fear, then it kind of calms that part of the brain.
Mm.
If we want to go scientific, it calms that part of the brain so that you can start to have some clarity. And oftentimes we tap into like, what are some hobbies and things that you just have not allowed yourself to um, dig deeper into? Some things maybe that you gave up in the past. I know when I was going through a divorce, my love of writing resurfaced, and
Mm-hmm.
so I started blogging again. I really got my feet wet into different types of blogging, and so there are creative ways that you can start to overcome fear, to face those fears in one area of your life, and so that it softens that burden in other areas.
Have you ever worked with a divorce attorney, let's say, to put together a comprehensive plan, if you may, for your clients in terms of the divorce part, the therapy part, your part? Kind of what does that look like?
Yes. So I have a couple of attorneys in the local area that they can recognize immediately when they get someone that is emotion driven. They typically say like the fire hose is in effect, like they're just unburdening all of their emotions. And so they will kind of give them the wording that you just said, like I can listen to you, but I'm charging you by the hour. I have someone who's not going to charge you by the hour, give you a flat rate and kind of help you with that. And so we work through what are they so focused on in the session with the attorney, and how I can help them refocus. And it's mostly questions, very thought provoking questions that help shift it or activate a different part of the brain. When you're going through divorce and your emotions are high, the executive decision making part of your brain literally shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just so emotionally driven. You're trying to seek emotional justice, which I have to tell you, it's never going to happen. So
Not in,
that's part
not
of
on
just
this
being,
platform.
no, it's never going to happen. So sometimes it's just a matter of telling you what you don't want to hear, but that you need to hear
Right.
so that you can refocus. And so um, the attorney may take down the list of things and complaints that they're hearing over and over again. They will give those to me, and then we'll go through a plan of like, okay, this is the main underneath all of these questions, like reading between the lines, this is the issue.
Right.
And so we'll focus, as a coach, I'll focus on those issues with them.
So I think the question that I hear a lot of clients in my head, I hear it like why would I hire you instead of just going to get a therapist? Why?
Mhm. And that's a really good question. And just being honest, there are times where I have people come to me and I will tell them, you need a therapist. I am fine with being honest about that because you need the right professional.
Right.
But what happens is when you, depending on if you were the one to file or if you were blindsided,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to determine your emotional state. And if you were the one to say, I was done, I knew I was done a year ago, then 9 times out of 10, you're ready to move forward anyway. And it's going to be easier as a coach to help you create the vision of yourself moving forward. If you're someone who's kind of straddling on the fence, like, I don't really know if I want a divorce, but I'm tired of these things, then
Mm-hmm.
a coach can help you with that as well, because they're going to help you. What I call it is focus on your marriage identity. Your identity within your marriage may have gotten lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we can work on that even as a coach. I think sometimes people, automatically want to go to a marriage counselor, which is helpful. But especially if you don't have the support of a spouse who wants to attend that with you individually, you can always come to me as a coaching client as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's room for both the therapist and the coach. I would say it depends on the person. If you are a person that says like, I need strategies, I don't want to just sit and somebody dissect me or diagnose me, I need strategy and I'm ready to move forward, then that's where as a coach I can help you.
And I think your role is a little more expansive for the reason you just said, right? You
Mhm.
can have a plan in the therapy setting, in the divorce setting. You can have different goals set up with your assistants, and I think that's very very important in the divorce space, right? So I can only handle so many of those goals as it relates to business, but you can help those individuals write out plans for their financial advisor, their therapist, And I think that takes the stress load off because a lot of people don't know where to place that load while they're going through this process. Which brings me to another point because a lot of people call me, they're so afraid. They don't know what to expect. They don't know what to do. They don't know who they can trust, who they can talk to. Kind of that person, how do you kind of walk them off the cliff when they don't, like you said, if they're blindsided by the divorce or they just don't know what to expect in this process?
And in those instances, it's clarity that they are lacking. They don't feel courageous about the process because they don't have clarity. And so I really help them dig deeper. I ask them those questions. Who do you want to become? If they have children, what type of parent, what do you want your children to remember about this process? What do you want your children to be thankful for? What activities are you involved in? What activities are your children involved in? What does your self-care look like? And so a lot of times it's the overwhelm of the emotion comes from the lack of clarity. And obviously you can't think clearly because you're emotionally driven. My role is to be that thinking partner with you. And I say with you because it's your life, you're going to make the decisions. But by the series of questions and the role playing and the planning that I'm able to help you with, then you're able to gain that clarity. And I think it's also important to kind of um, paint a bigger or broader picture of what goals look like in the coaching arena. Sometimes people get hung up on the fact like, oh, I'm not ready for a goal. Like I'm just trying to get through this day. That is the goal. Sometimes the goal is I need a strategy for getting through the night because I'm not used to sleeping alone, or I need a strategy for picking my kids up from school, or letting my spouse pick my former spouse pick my kids up from school. So sometimes the goals are not something that's far out 2 years or 16 years from now, even. It's like I need a goal right here in the present to get through the process.
Right. Because a lot of times we have to address the practical matters of divorce for
Yeah.
the reasons you just stated. And a lot of times I think people are overwhelmed because they don't know what to expect in the actual legal process. Like what's going to happen and
Mm-hmm.
how is my ex going to respond and my kids, and the list goes on. So
Yeah.
I love what you represent because to me your role is just as important as my role in this space if we're looking at the holistic journey through this process. With that said, kind of what are some of the coping techniques in general, right, that you can
Mm-hmm.
recommend to someone that is in this space or thinking about entering this journey of divorce?
So my coping strategies circle or center around the five senses.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be breathing. It may be writing in a journal. It could be podcasts, audiobooks. It could be getting outside and having a daily walk. It's going to be practical skills to help you get through this process. Self-care is going to be so important. If it wasn't already centered in your life, nothing else is going to be more important through this process than your self-care. And those coping strategies may be, yeah, you're still going to need your friend circle, but those boundaries may have to shift. You may have to steer conversations in different directions to avoid being triggered in certain areas. You may have to have like your wingman or your wing girl to say, hey, like I know I need to get out the house, but can you be like the person that I can lean on and give you that look when like, okay, it's time to go. I'm overwhelmed. And so it's the practical strategies to help you get through the day-to-day living that's going to equip you to feel a little more clarity and confidence and even courage to continue with the path and to start over after.
So I think what gets me is to your point that you made earlier. A lot of people think they're going to be vindicated for whatever happened in the relationship, right? So they want the judge to know, they want me to know, they want everyone to know what this person did to them. And sometimes that does impact their decisions on how they're going to divide property or how they're going to um, have their custodial plan. So, how do you assist someone in making practical decisions while they're going through this very emotional process?
Yeah, I would say that that's the same on my end, that the person wants emotional justice. I have had that backfire more times than not, to where they've been keeping a log of all the activities that their spouse is doing. And then they're just like, when the judge sees this or when my attorney sees this, and it completely goes the opposite, because now you basically made yourself look crazy. So, you know, and so getting them to take that anger or that frustration out onto something else. I don't care if it's a rage room, something else,
Yes.
to get that emotion out of your body, because that's what it is. It's an emotion that's trapped in your body, and you will not feel satisfied until it comes out. And so learning other ways to release it so that you can gain some clarity, going back to those questions of like, okay, who do you want to be? Sometimes women are like, oh, I want my daughter to know that I stood up to her father. And then I have to ask the question, like, so do you want her to deny that part of herself? Because she's half of her father.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, so it's the questioning, the reframing, all of that plays a role into getting them to think about things a little bit differently or release it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. So what are things divorce attorneys, because we're not equipped with dealing with emotions and that sort of thing. So what would you say to some divorce attorneys when they're dealing with highly emotional people, outside of referring them to you, because to me you are better equipped to deal with this, so they can have a better experience with us, because there's some attorneys that aren't as empathetic. And so what are ways we can be more helpful in a limited sense when our clients are being impractical?
hmm Well, first, I even appreciate that question and the honesty
Mm-hmm.
there. I would definitely say encouraging them to journal. I don't get like write it down. When they are emotionally driven, just saying like that sounds like something that you need to get to pen and paper so that you can gain some clarity. Like that needs to come out of you. Where's your journal? Write that down. Like
Mm-hmm.
get them to get it out of their body so that they can refocus. If you know that they like to run and jog and exercise, like, hey, did you get out and get your run in today? Like, did you, whatever it is, helping them to get those emotions out of their body in a way that aligns with what they already do. If you know that they, like to engage in certain activities, ask them about those things. Hey, did you listen to that podcast you said you were going to listen to? Whatever, those strategies may be to help them refocus.
Mm-hmm. I notice too, I have to tell my clients, you have to take divorce in pieces, right? You're not going to be done
Yes.
the day you sign up with my office. So it's not going to help to call us every day, like, where are we? Is it almost done? It's definitely a marathon. So do you help
hmm
clients through each stage, right? Because the initial stage is everyone is emotional and uncertain. And then things tend to you know, ease out a little bit. So, kind of what is your process? How long do you work with someone during the journey?
hmm I've worked with individuals for as long as 2 years, from the time that they thought about it through the process and then afterwards. And I will say that each phase, like you mentioned, presents different opportunities. And I say opportunities intentionally rather than obstacles, because there's an opportunity to rewrite your story. You are still the author of your life. And so when you are thinking about it, that's a critical time for you to get clear on what you want, so that when you do get to the attorney, that you're utilizing your time in the best way possible, because you've already thought about the things that may go into your settlement agreement. You all have already thought about parenting agreement and things like that. So that's that part. But then after that ink dries, and I don't care if you were the ones who initiated, there's a different emotion that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's relief, sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's regret. And that takes on a different lens to move through that, and to have plans and strategies in place for that as well. So that's the time for me to remind you of all the things that you mentioned to me throughout the process, of the goals that you maybe have left behind, of who you wanted to be as a parent, because that's your identity is being redefined, and that's the time to tap into those resources again.
Can we briefly speak to that? Because I don't think that that's a
Yeah.
piece that a lot of people understand. Like some people think like, yes, I'm divorced. But then once, like you said, once I'm out of the picture, once you don't have that interaction with your spouse, a lot of times spouses are engaged to someone else. What are
Mhm.
some recommendations you can give to someone when their divorce is actually final? I know I posted something on my Instagram a couple days ago, and this woman was saying it's really the loss of a dream that she mourned, that she didn't sign up to be a single mom, she didn't sign up to be single, she didn't sign up for all these things. So, how do you talk to that person that is restarting their journey as a single parent, divorced, not wanting to be divorced? Kind of what do you say to that person?
Yeah, and in those moments, it's really a shift of who you thought or what you thought your family unit would look like. And the biggest advice or tip that I could give is to give yourself permission to grieve, to mourn, and also to dream something different. It's okay for to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for the dream to take on a different look. And sometimes that's when you find that, oh, wow, like I never thought I would be a single parent, but I'm actually kind of enjoying this time there where my child gets to go with the other parent. And sometimes it's like, oh, shoot, I don't know if it's right for me to feel this way, but I actually kind of like it. And so when you allow yourself to experience different things, to have different boundaries, to kind of shift away from that spouse who maybe used to be dependent on you. I had one client who her former spouse, he was the one that filed, but he still was treating her like she was the wife.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, it kind of felt good to say, like, I'm no longer your wife.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ask me that.
Right.
And so it's in those moments, like, give yourself permission to, yeah, to grieve, but also to experience something different. You might surprise yourself with what you are enjoying.
I like that. Dream a new dream. And I think a lot of
Hmm.
times people have a hard time letting go, grieving, and being able to dream a new dream.
Yeah,
So I hope you are motivation for them to do just that.
I hope so. It's possible.
It is. So we talk a lot about celebrity divorces and things of that nature. And I know it's great for clickbait, but I couldn't imagine having every time I filed a motion, I went to court, it's on everything. So, what would you say? I'm gonna use Portia. Portia, I forget her
Oh,
last name
goodness.
from the from the Real Housewives. And a lot of people
I
say,
just,
"Well, I don't know
yeah.
if she's doing it for the show." I'm gonna take her at her word. She says she's not. This is her real life. Um, but she's also still human. So, what would you say
Mhm.
to someone in that space that's a celebrity and not only they're dealing with what we're speaking about today, but every move is on social media or in the media in some way?
I would say what I tell a lot of my clients, but even more so for celebrities, get off of social media. Like, it may be difficult,
Mm,
but get off of it. Hire someone else to do your posting, remove yourself from it, because you need at least a year to process and to allow yourself. I think even in mental health, they say after the death of a loved one, not to make any major decisions for at least a year.
mm,
The same applies with divorce, because it is the grief. You're grieving the death of a marriage.
mm-hmm.
And so for celebrities, delegate as much as possible. Go into your little bubble as much as you can. And some celebrities can do it, some can't. They will lose that momentum if they are not in the spotlight. And so allow yourself to show up. Even though Beyonce and Jay-Z are not going through divorce, but I use her as the perfect example of marketing. She shows up when she needs to, and then she's gone.
She does.
You know, show up when you need to and then disappear.
Right.
Go away and allow yourself to go through the process and heal.
Is your process for higher net worth or celebrity clients, is that process any different for you or is it very similar?
It is different in the case that most of those high profile celebrities have what is called a collaborative divorce. I'm sure you're probably
Mm-hmm.
familiar with it, where they have a whole divorce team and we all worked together. Sometimes there's a one flat rate that we all, are, kind of taking the pot out of. They may have a certain amount of time with each divorce professional. And sometimes my role becomes more of like the organizer or the orchestrator of all of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because each professional is also getting the fire hose effect, and it's up to me to kind of facilitate the the clients or the person's well-being with the divorce process. So they're very exciting, just to see how things go when there's a lot of money involved.
Mm-hmm.
And people that can make decisions by making one phone call, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess you didn't need me for that.
Speaking of Portia, I thought it was very, very quick, but they seemed very much in love. We also saw the 50-part series of the young lady that did
Genius.
Who the F Did I Marry?
Yes.
Do you ever coach people that either move too fast or they know they made a mistake or they should not have been in a relationship? What do you say to those people?
So the name of my company, which is On Q Coaching and Consulting, it came about. It's not just my Coach Q. It's not just related to my name, but it comes about from the fact that I truly believe that when you heal from the inside out, that the opportunities to create the life that you love will present themselves right on cue. And so a lot of people move through these relationships so fast that you have never healed the hurt and the pain that was inside of you. And all you keep doing is presenting another opportunity to work on the same problem with a different face. And so in those moments, that's when it really gets down to the nitty gritty of I call it like the blooming onion from Outback, peeling back the layers, peeling back the layers of like, let's go way back to like the first time you got married, and what was your expectation of marriage? What informed that decision? What was your view of money? And what was your communication? Did your spouse know your plan, or were you the only one in on this, deal that you had in your head of how marriage was supposed to go? Sometimes it's those brutal conversations that you have with yourself. Risa Tisa, I couldn't get through all 50 just because I could tell on number 3 where this was going. And I'm like, you didn't see all these red flags, like, but I've also been through it. And I knew sometimes you are an easy target. And that's just the reality of it. Sometimes we make ourselves easy targets because we don't heal. And in those moments when I have individuals that come to me like that, that's when we have to get back into peeling back the layers of where this idea of marriage or relationship or partnership came from. And is it something that is really conducive to who you are today? Was it something that you've been holding on to since you were 6 and 15 and you're determined to make it happen no matter what forms it comes to you in? It's really those brutal conversations that we have to have with ourselves.
Right. We definitely have to do the work because um, I think at some point in life, those experiences lead us to the hurt we need to address. And a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
instead of getting back to what we need to address, like you said, it's just replaced with another person. And we all know
Yeah.
experiences will always come back to us until we learn the lesson.
Yeah, I just posted a video the other day about, I can see right now, especially with, social media, we're in this information age,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people are so busy intellectualizing healing that they are not embodying healing.
Mm.
And healing is not something that you can read a book about. and be done with it. You have to experience it, which means you have to go through being triggered. That's your opportunity to work through your emotions, to readjust your boundaries, to reframe how you look at your world. And so it's living through the process, not just placing band-aids on it, that's going to actually get you to the other side of whatever you're going through.
Or band-aids on wounds that need stitches or surgery or
Yes.
whatever
Yeah.
the situation may be.
It's like a gushing wound and you're trying to put a band-aid on it.
Well, Coach Q, I love that. Um,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I am so happy that you joined us. This was so enlightening, even for myself. No matter how many divorces I do, I am always fascinated with the journey. And that's why I am here to help people become better equipped with the tools that they need. And I think you are so much of an essential tool. So, for those who are looking for a coach and want to specifically look for you, where do they find you?
Well, you can find me on all social media at Coach Q Simone. My website is onqcoachingandconsulting.com, which is, kind of long, but just go to any of my social media. And if you go on my website, you'll also see that I'm coming out with my first self-help memoir to just kind of help individuals who are on that path of all the phases of divorce and what each phase calls for and how to get through it.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much for coming to Legally Uncensored. And for all of you, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Legally Uncensored. And until next time, I am Demetria Graves.